Scottish Enterprise is the main national economic development agency in Scotland. I mean, we're focused on stimulating and driving growth in our companies in Scotland, but also we're very much focused around developing key areas, key sectors. For example, energy through to, in particular, the area I look after, which is digital markets and enabling technologies. What I'm going to talk about really is our experience around commercialisation, which is a term I know is used in various places. We use it, but really it's focused on this whole challenge of how we can get more out of the technology and the science that we have, be it in our universities or in our companies, and particularly focusing on how we can build new businesses around that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the context, which is around innovation in general and how this sits within it, and some of the aspects around that, and then I'll move on to talk around commercialisation. Innovation from an economic development viewpoint is really about the exploitation of new ideas, developing business, but based around very much responding to the demands and challenges as we see them, so around new markets, new technology, but developing products and services, new process, new business. But it's also about skills and culture. It's about new ways of doing things, new ways of doing business, new business models, but also about organising ourselves, using our skills, using our people, developing new partnerships and working in collaboration. But it's also about being systematic. I mean, innovation is not something that, if we're going to exploit to its full potential, just happens by trial and error. I think we have to be systematic about it. We have to be structured about it. The evidence for innovation driving growth is clear. Nesta, for example, have produced evidence to directly show how innovation has direct links to growth in business and driving the economy. Having said that, in Scotland, if we look at what's called the innovation active measure in our companies, we're actually not doing very well. We actually are in the bottom quartile. And that's really a particular concern to us as an economic development agency. And so part of our challenge is to try to help our businesses to address this. But it's very clear one of the great assets we have in Scotland, I think as we do have across the UK, is our university base. The academic prowess of our universities is renowned, and we only have to look at all kinds of measures, and obviously we referred to earlier on in terms of research measurement to show how we're doing well and the capability we've got. I mean, our government in Scotland recognises this, and so therefore we have a specific policy around driving innovation. We see it as a key driver for economic development, and that's wider than just science and technology into some of the areas I talked around. So in Scottish Enterprise, we've developed an innovation agenda which is really built around 4 pillars. I'll just bring them up. So business innovation, which is about company growth. It's about encouraging and stimulating innovation in our businesses. And we have a whole range of support mechanisms where we encourage that, and that's primarily through one-to-one support with companies. So it ranges from things like, for example, product development workshops, which we sponsor and we help with, right through to R&D grants. And we have a lot of experience in providing R&D grants from SMEs right through to large companies. But we also work in the area of company building, so we provide advice and help to companies who want to grow, and we have a specific unit, for example, within our agency devoted to providing help and advice and getting companies investor ready, as it's called, including which and where they can get funding. But I would certainly concur with Michael's comments about the challenge around investment at the moment. It's certainly been particularly difficult, and I mean, just as a comment, I speak to a whole range of investors, primarily in Scotland, but also UK and wider players. And typically you will hear stories of lots of people looking for investment, but actually it's very challenging at the moment. And investors are having to stay and support the companies that they've already invested in because they're not finding the exits. They're not going public. They're not finding the bigger companies who want to or have got the cash to buy at the moment. So typically you hear stories of, I had 200 business plans across my desk last year and I've invested in one of those opportunities. So it's really challenging. And if you are in the business of trying to find funding, you have to work hard and you have to keep going. You can't expect to get it first time around. But I want to talk specifically about commercialisation. and what we're doing there and how we're trying to improve success. So commercialisation really is the whole route from this initial idea right through to growing a successful company, so getting it out into the market where it's profitable and it has a future. And the risk through that long journey changes from the very early stages when the risks are very high, the uncertainty is very high, through to the point where getting that business in the state where people are willing to invest their own money from the private sector is very challenging. And from the public sector, we see our role is to help overcome some of those challenges. So we have a particular remit, which is to address what we call market failure. So it's overcoming barriers that individuals and companies can't overcome without support and help. So what's our experience? Well, actually, when we look back at what we have done in this area, as an agency, we've spent something like 30 to 40 million a year in this area of supporting new startup companies, building companies and helping them grow. So that's significant investments. But actually, when we look at our success rate, it's not been great. We will openly admit that. So there's been a weak translation really into successful companies. For example, we commissioned a report that looked at all the spin-outs from Scottish universities up to 2008, of which there was about 200, almost all of which, I have to say, has been in the last 10 years. So most of this activity has been quite recent. But having said that, of those, 30% have already failed, and actually only 15% are employing more than 10 people. And only 6 have achieved scale. This shows you the challenge, I think, that we all face in terms of establishing new businesses built on completely new technology. So as a result, we undertook a strategic review and said, well, how do we make this better? What do we do about it? Sorry, I'm catching up with my slides. I'm not looking at things. So some of the things that we learnt from this is that we need to focus our resources. We need to be much clever about those propositions that we support, and we need to get a much clearer commercial focus into those. They need to be adequately funded. We need to ensure that the propositions that we have can attract the right level of investment to get them through the early stages of company growth to the point where they are profitable. I think, concurring with comments earlier on, it's about not setting that company up too soon, not sending it into the big bad world where it's got to survive before it really has the capability to do that. So that's about spinning it out at the right time, setting it up at the right time. So the technology has got to be close enough to the market. And again, the current financial challenges around investment, one of the key, obviously investors, the first thing they look for is the strength of the management team. Then the second thing they look for is really the strength of the market opportunity and demonstration there's real customer base. But the third thing they look for is proximity of technology to market. So how much more investment is required just to get the technology to the point where it's sellable? And at the moment, for many investors, that gap has to be zero. In other words, they want to see already proof that you have a technology or a product that can be sold before they're prepared to invest.